Good morning. Thank you. It's a terrific honor to keynote Black Hat, and I'm glad you all joined me here today. I'm honored by your presence. I'll be honest, making the morning keynote was often a challenge for me. I couldn't get up in time, I like to sleep in, but I'm really glad I woke up in time for this one.
Yeah.
Also, fun fact, did you know that on your 20th Black Hat, you get to keynote? This is my 20th Black Hat, and I was reflecting on sort of how the conference has changed over the last 20 years, how the security field has changed, and also how I have changed. And, for instance, there's a lot more of you now than there was when I started coming to Black Hat. There's a lot more tracks. There was just one track back then, and there's a lot more vendor booths. I think the first ones I went to, there might have been one vendor booth kind of tucked away in a hallway, so to make sure no one would accidentally wander past it. But we're in a much different place now. So I wanted to explain a little bit of some of the lessons that I learned along the way and how those could help us for the way forward. So if you don't mind joining me on a trip down memory lane so we can go over those and talk about how I learned them and also a parable of questionable hairstyling choices. So, in the late 90s, the world is just coming online. This is when I started, started in security. And a bunch of websites are getting defaced. And in particular, the DEF CON conference website, and also an annual ritual of that site getting defaced during DEF CON. And even when the movie Hackers came out, its website was defaced. And until that point, I'd been computering and whatever, but I wasn't really interested in security because I thought it was like guessing passwords and things like that, and that was really kind of boring to me. But one of the things on the defacement of the Hackers website kind of stood out to me. It said, read frac. And I was like, what's frac? And so I started researching, and this was before I think Google even existed, so I don't remember exactly how I found it. But I started finding out that, wait a minute, there's so much more to security and hacking than I previously thought. And I was just like, this is super cool. Like, hacking is actually magic. You learn how things really work, and then you develop these tricks, and then it makes it look like magic when you're done. But basically, you have to put a lot of thought into how you construct these. And if any of you have seen the movie from the 80s, Short Circuit, where this robot gets struck by lightning and comes alive, then he learns to read and just wants input. That was pretty much how I was with hacking text files. And so I just learned everything I could and experimented and stayed up way too late when I should have been going to school. And so this picture is actually from my first DEF CON. Went to DEF CON 7, and I spent pretty much the entire conference playing Capture the Flag, day and night. I think I made it to one talk, and I think that was Cult of the Dead Cow's release of BO2K. But other than that, just Capture the Flag day and night. And none of my friends were really playing as well, so I was alone with my laptop and just hacking away, and I loved it. And kind of an interesting thing happened so they closed the main hall. So this was back when Capture the Flag was a lot more ad hoc. You could just walk up to a clipboard, write your handle. I went by Gandhi at the time, and write down an IP address that you chose for yourself. I think mine ended in 42 because if you read Douglas Adams, that's the answer to life, the universe, and everything. And you just start hacking away. And so they shut down the main banquet hall, so if you wanted to keep working on Capture the Flag, you had to move out into the hallway. And one of the other teams, I didn't know their name at the time, but there was a group of people that I later learned called themselves the Ghetto Hackers. They had like 10 or 20 people. They had a lot of people working on the same challenges that I was. And I couldn't compete with them by myself. I got access to one system, but they actually killed my process. They had one person, and I found out that night, they had one person fully dedicated to just waiting till I logged in, killing my process. And I was like, come on. And so I was like, all right, well, what am I going to do? All right, okay, here's what I'm going to do. So I scripted up logging into all the hosts and killing all of their processes. And so what I would do is I'd run the script, and then I'd hear them go like, what just happened? And they're kind of confused. So then I'd wait a random number of minutes, maybe 7, maybe 12, and then I'd hit up arrow, hit enter, and then kill all the processes again. And I did this for about an hour, and they kept getting more frustrated. They're like, after about 45 or 50 minutes, they're yelling. They're like, what keeps happening? Like, what is going on? And then I just walked over and I said, hey, are you guys going to stop killing my processes now? And they're like, yeah, okay, we'll stop. I was like, all right, thanks. And I learned a really valuable lesson that day. That is that like automation and software can be a force multiplier. Can be, using leverage can actually help you compete when your opponents have more resources and more people than you. So let's fast forward to the next year. This is 2000. More interesting hairstyling choices. I was a Unix administrator at a startup in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where I grew up and was going to school. And there weren't really security jobs at the time, so I was still learning about security in my spare time. And what felt like the job at that time was finding vulnerabilities. Like that's what I was really interested in. I wanted to level up and be a better hacker, so that meant learning how to find vulnerabilities, how to exploit them. And so one of the things I did is, at that time, a lot of big internet sites ran on Solaris. So I brought home one of the Solaris workstations for the weekend and wanted to spend the entire weekend doing vuln research. As you can tell, I was a real party animal in college. Sure, none of you can relate. And so that first night, actually, I found a remote vulnerability, like in a default install. I was like, whoa, this is amazing. It was a remote root, but it was, it was still good. And I, had an exploit working by morning, and so I reported it to Sun, that next morning. And while I was waiting for them to fix it, I spent kind of the entire, a lot of time making the exploit better, figuring out how to make it more reliable, and researching ways to exploit Solaris and Spark processors. And I ended up actually spending my entire spring break on this exploit. I'd wake up, eat, hack, eat, sleep, repeat for about 10 days. And learned a lot in the process. And I actually submitted a talk to DEF CON 8. This was my first conference presentation about writing exploits for Solaris. And believe it or not, I was actually pretty terrified of public speaking back then. And clearly I've kind of gotten over it. But what I thought was interesting looking back is our job to be done at that time felt like finding vulnerabilities, reporting them, and just teaching kind of the world how vulnerabilities can be found and how they can be exploited. Because we're just learning about what is exploitable and what's not. We have a much better idea now and much better tools. Now let's go to 2007. So security had gotten better. A lot of the threats that previously were affecting the internet, like worms that were taking advantage of operating system level vulnerabilities and kind of really clogging up the internet every few months or a couple years, has sort of subsided. And a lot of the threats moved to web browsers. And this is when drive-by downloads were a thing, and there's sort of like the start of a crimeware economy, malware for profit. And related to this, there was a contest called Pwn to Own. And around this time, Dragos Ryu, the founder of the Kansas West Conference, was hearing a lot of people saying Macs are impenetrable, but some people saying, actually no, they're insecure like everything else. So he said, well, put up or shut up. And he bought 2 top-of-the-line MacBook Pros and said, all right, if you can hack into them, they're yours. That's why he called it Pwn to Own. So the first one, I think it was the 15-inch, you needed a browser exploit. And for the 17-inch, you needed a remote root exploit. And so I actually wasn't at the conference. I was back in New York. And a friend called me on like Thursday night, I think, because the conference ended on Friday. He said, hey, they're having this conference. I know you do a lot of Mac vuln research in your spare time. Why don't you win this thing? And I was like, well, okay, that seems like a good idea. And I actually had a remote root exploit that I was working on at the time, but I didn't really want to use that one. I was like, I can do this one for myself. This is kind of fun to play with, because that's what I thought was the right thing to do at the time. And so instead, I stayed up all night and tried to find a new vulnerability. And I was like, all right, let's find a browser vulnerability. And I actually found a bug in the Java component, QuickTime for Java, that I could actually exploit through Safari and Firefox. And got the proof of concept working, sent it over in the morning to my friend, and said, hey, go ahead and run this, win the contest, and take the laptop's yours. I just bought a MacBook Pro, I don't need a new one. But just make sure it's clear to people that I found the bug, I wrote the exploit, like I'm the researcher that did this, but run it, the laptop's yours. And the irony, and then I went into the office, and I worked at a small quant trading firm at the time, about 100 people, and it was a really interesting irony where at night I'm finding vulnerabilities and I'm writing zero-day exploits, and then in the day I'm working on the actual needs of this organization. I was their first security hire, and the things that I had to do were I guess not